Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Not a ton of announcements tonight. The big one for me right now is that for the next 2 weeks, I am going to be gone traveling. I have some overseas travel that's part work, part pleasure, so it's going to be a bit of a mix. So for the next 2 weeks, so today is April 9th for me. So what is that? 16th and 23rd, there will be no stream. However, do not fear. I'm not saying no video, no stream. So I have recorded at least for the 16th. If I go here, right there. If you check out my YouTube channel, there's an interviews playlist which should be right at the top. Right now I think it's just Mads Christensen and Mads Torgensen that are on there, but next week I will give you a sneak peek. Maddie, the PM for the Aspire team, came on, and we had a wonderful discussion about Aspire, project management, kind of her career progression. She's great. So if you are interested, that will be live on my YouTube channel on the 16th. I don't remember what time. I think it comes out in the morning, whereas I normally stream in the evening. But regardless, there will be videos coming out in my absence. So there will still be content coming. It will just be in the form of YouTube videos rather than Twitch streams. So if you're watching this on YouTube, congratulations, you're in the right place. If you're watching this on Twitch, check out my YouTube and go through and do. I'll post something in my Discord just as a reminder to people to let them know that it's coming. And then I am recording a couple more interviews next week. And one of those will get scheduled for the 23rd, and the other one will get scheduled at a TBD date. So we will see. I'm not sure if I should say who it is. I'm not going to say. It'll be a surprise. The 23rd will be a surprise guest. Maddie Montequilla, hopefully I got that name correct, is next week. The other thing I guess I should plug really quick is sorry, 1 second, I gotta find it. I realize I'm not sharing yet, so don't panic. I'm not completely botching this. Sorry, I didn't have this link up because I kind of forgot about it. If I grab Spokane.net user group, so if people are interested, there was. Now we'll do this. We'll go here. So if people are interested, there's a link there. You can search for Intelitech on YouTube. But this one was 2 days ago. So Ben Michaelis did a really great talk on the Microsoft testing platform, MTP. If you've watched me leverage tests or similar here, it's basically my default setting. To give people just a quick high-level summary, Microsoft testing platform was Microsoft basically looking at the testing framework, because VS Test we've had for many, many years, and going, hey, given all of the advancements in .NET, if we could redo this from scratch today, what would that look like? And the output of that is the Microsoft testing platform. So that is out there. I thought he did an excellent job going through and covering stuff. So if you are at all interested, check that out. And then the other one that I will plug, and you can sign up, you can either sign up on the meetup group or you can just watch it here on YouTube as well, is next month, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. There is going to be, will this open big? Yay. Hey, look. Me. We're going to be doing a discussion on developer workflows, because something that we heard from a lot of the regulars at the user group is there's a strong desire to kind of see how people are working, how people are leveraging different AI tools, their workflows, and just effectively share tips and tricks of how we are working. For some of you, you've watched me on this stream, you've seen some of my things. I'm hoping to pull out some extra tricks for this one. There's some announcements that are coming over the next few weeks that I'm hoping are going to make my fingers tingle and some new things going. So just be aware of that. There may also be an extra surprise YouTube video coming. We'll see. I don't know. I'm hoping to get an extra one recorded. I'm waiting to hear back from some people on if I can include some content or not. So waiting to see if I can include all the content I want to include or if I have to cut some stuff. So there will potentially be an extra cool video. But yeah, Ben, myself, Dan, and Mike are going to be going through and kind of covering all this. So it's going to be a little bit more of a whirlwind tour. It's probably going to be closer to a 90-minute thing rather than a 60-minute that we normally aim for, just because there's 4 of us, and trying to cut it down to 15 minutes, man, some of us are long-winded and like to talk. So, but if people are at all interested, check that out. It'll be a great time. Okay, there's all that. There's all this. Okay, so last time we were playing around on the material design project, and there was actually one other thing I wanted to pull up and show, because it's going to be the inspiration for tonight. So there is, yeah, this will work. So there was this, can I still call it a tweet if it's on X? Maybe I'm too old if I do that. I don't know what the hip kids are saying these days. But David Fowler posted this of, stop making your agent a process manager. The agent harness really sucks at this. And I think we've seen this a little bit, is specifically around .NET Aspire integration. I think I showed this off, or maybe I just talked about it, of the agent gets really hung up when it's trying to like start processes, wait for something to get up and running, and then kill and get running, right? Like this type of thing is horrible, right? And this all came about because of this thing here from Aspire, talking about how they've gone through and added in a nice feedback loop to be able to go through and let your agent actually control your Aspire host and your Aspire-based application. Again, if you haven't seen this, this is another one from Maddie. This is who's going to nicely show up on my YouTube next week. So, but this also is very applicable to the material design project, because I have a similar thing around my XAML test related stuff. It's not quite the same, but there is some process management that goes on to using XAML test, because it starts a secondary process, which is an empty WPF shell, effectively, and then you can use your test process to inject content into it. That's great, but now when you have an agent trying to run and go back and forth, it doesn't make for a very clean thing. So we've kind of started at MCP before. I've hemmed and hawed on it. I've been trying to figure out the right way to accomplish things, and I think I'm slowly solidifying it in my head. So that's one thing that I think we're going to take a quick peek at here, because there was some questions from one of the material design maintainers earlier today about, you know, hey, is this an okay use of AI and that sort of thing? And so I guess I just want to be real clear on my position. One, I think AI-based tooling is going to be as ubiquitous as source control. Right now, if we hear somebody doing software development without source control, we usually assume it's a knowledge or a skills gap. And like, why would you not use source control for everything? Like, absolutely. Like, we may have some debate about where to host it or what your favorite Git tooling is. Obviously, it's Git Kraken. But there's a little bit back and forth there, right? But source control is fairly ubiquitous for pretty much everything at this point. There's almost nobody doing serious development who's not leveraging source control, especially if they know it. Right? It's very, I don't know that I've ever met an engineer who was familiar with how to use source control and didn't elect to use it. Right? It's one of those things that once you understand it, it is one of the most valuable skills that you can pick up. So my opinion is AI tooling is going to be as ubiquitous as that, right? How you use it, exactly which AI tools you use, and where you go with it, I think there's going to be plenty of room for debate there. But I think it will be rare to find somebody who's not leveraging AI-based tooling in some way, shape, or form. Second, I firmly believe that we are nowhere close to a position where you can effectively take any serious-based application and just like let the AI write it without any sort of review. Right? There has to be review and validation. Most of the time, this is going to need to come in the form of humans actually looking at the code, right? There are some changes in certain things where maybe you don't need to look at the code, and executing it is actually a better test to make sure it does do what you say, right? There may be some legit cases for that, but there has to be validation. And people who don't have a lot of built-in validation with like their DevOps process or otherwise, you don't have that now. Throwing AI into your process without that type of engineering and validation is asking for trouble, right? You need that built in. So just to be clear, that's where I'm at. And I kind of reiterated that to him as well. And was like, hey, I personally think people using AI tools to try to like fix problems, quick solutions, that kind of thing is awesome, right? Make sure you've got some level of validation on it. And I think spending the time doing the engineering to make the AI tools do your bidding properly, I think is worthwhile, right? There's a wonderful article. I think I've commented on this before. So Stephen Taub is notorious for his blog posts because he writes blog posts that are, right, like, these are short novels. Just to be clear, before you dive in on a Stephen Taub blog, just know what you're getting yourself in for. And the thing is, he's not long-winded. Like, these blog posts are packed with information. Like, it is well written, loaded with information, and it is dense. There is a ton here. I will summarize. Invest in doing the work to make your AIs be helpful, and you will see returns on it. Right? I think that is a fair summary of, where's his table down here? Right? They've got some glances down here of, you know, the numbers of how much was human done, coding agent, dependabot, etc. Right? And I think at the very bottom, where is it? One takeaway, right? And I just want to highlight like the conclusion that he drew at the end of this. The preparation matters more than the model, right? And in this case, preparation boils down to spending the time to work on the AI flows, right? So the success rate jumped from 38% to 69%. With better preparation. Every hour spent working and documenting their stuff in their Copilot instructions and teaching new skills paid dividends across all the future ones, right? That type of engineering of putting some work into your project. And so we're going to do a little bit of that on the material design stuff in a bit, because I want to show off something that I did a little bit earlier. Just, again, some of it is experimentation to see, okay, how well is this going to work? And I'm very fine, because frankly, like, AI can often dump code into a file quicker than I can, right? Like, that is its bread and butter, and I'm okay with that. For anybody who cares, I do have, if anybody wants my AI guidelines, I changed the URL from what it was last week in case anyone cares. Don't worry, the old URL still works. It redirects here, though, right? So the two key rules that I will harp on is avoid AI when learning is needed, because AI is a real easy button, and it is hard to learn if you're mashing the easy button. It's hard to learn multiplication if all you're using is a calculator and you're punching numbers in, right? Can it be a teaching and a learning aid? Absolutely. But you got it, and that's why I said avoid, not, never use, right? I think there's potential to use it as a learning aid, but you got to be real diligent and careful, right? And then don't submit anything for peer review that you haven't reviewed yourself, right? There is an effort of validation that needs to go into it, right? That is a thing. As I get a better handle on what I think the correct engineering is for repositories, do note my intent is to start documenting them into my templates repository. So for people who care, I have my this guy here. So, and I've been slowly punching stuff in and adding to it and going crazy on it. And so as I get a better handle on what I think basic stuff goes into a template repository here, I'm going to start adding in more, because I think I'm starting to note that there's some certain skills, certain things that there's patterns emerging as I've done it on a couple different repositories. And so as I see those patterns, I try to document them. Like this templates repository is effectively my way of documenting how I think, like, it's opinionated, very opinionated. But I think there are opinions that match my experience and I can justify. So people may disagree and want to do something different. That's fine. But for people who are like, I just want, like, I don't know what a good way is. Show me one possible good solution. Here's one. Here's one. Have at it. Right. Okay. Like some of them is like, I take opinions on MTP, the testing platform. I take opinions on T-Unit because that's the way I like to rock. Okay. So first thing we're going to attack here. So last week, we had kicked off this PR here for doing including the demo 3 app in the pipeline because I wanted it as an artifact, and we had gotten this all built up and we had let Copilot go, and then this immediately failed the pipeline. And this has been a bane of my existence, right? Of these tests here, there are some tests in this pipeline that are just bloody problematic. It is very, very, very frustrating. And I think what I want to do is, because if I go down and find these, where's my failed list? Where's my failed count? Failed. Scrolling tabs. Yeah. So this is one that has plagued us a little bit. And I wanted to look because I thought I had done a fix on one of these. Yeah, fix flaky tab navigation test. So this is the one here that I think it is fixed on. So what I was going to do is I was going to take our branch that we have here. I've rebased it on latest master. Let me kill off some of these remotes. I've got too many remotes going. Remove. I'll add them back in a minute. Okay. And actually, you know what? Why do I even have myself on here? I rarely use that fork. Should almost delete the fork. Because it's rare that I'm pushing to my own fork. I almost always go to the main repo. So I want to grab this guy here. So what we are going to do is we are going to just cherry pick this commit, immediately commit, and slap it up on there. Because I think that will get us in a better place. So we're going to force push that and send that up. Merry Christmas, Izzy. Merry Christmas. We are kicking along here. And then I wanted to look at this PR here because nope, that's not it. I wanted to go here, I guess. And I want to look at this PR. Because this was another one that should have gone, but this one is, once again, also waiting on that. So we're going to let the first one kick off and see if we get a better run on the test before I just fire them all off. So we're gonna queue that guy up. We're going to let him sit over here. Because this one here on the GitHub Actions one, this one I'm going to bypass. The fact that we ran the pipeline means it succeeded. Bypass and squash. So we're gonna do that because that one I'm not interested in fighting with. Let's see. This is the other one that's going to get rebased. I wanted to look at this dynamic color palette integration, but this one here is where we're going to start. So I cheated. I'll be honest. Hang on. I will pull this up here real quick and briefly look at this. Blue Lives, I am probably not the right person you want to ask on a C code problem. And there's a handful of things in here that give me minor bits of it. Not preparing for another release. I got a lot of birthdays happening. Actually, Izzy, yes. But I think in this case, it's going to be small, and in theory shouldn't be anything major. So Blue Lives, I can pull this up and take a look at it. I guess, what is the question that you have? I am not necessarily the right person you want to ask C code problems to, but I can kind of poke a little bit at this. It is C is not my language of choice. And the funky characters and whatnot are also giving me a bit of pause. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm noticing. Izzy, you don't happen to hang on. I don't have need my management thing open. I'm now reading this closer and I'm realizing I missed something. I'm stuck in a recursive loop. Um the I've got it up, Blue Lives, but again, I don't think I am the right person to go through and do this in here. There's a some of the variable names in here are also giving me pause. So I think I'm going to say you are probably best off hunting for a solution elsewhere. So I might propose a chat GPT or similar would probably be able to solve a reasonable amount of recursion. Okay. Where were we? So this one here. So this is one of those areas where oftentimes these questions come in, and I fully believe that this user, like, this is a legit question of trying to use the numeric up down control. It's got set up. It's great. But there is some questions here around hiding the buttons or similar, because in this case it's being shoved inside a data grid template column. That's fine. But right now the exposure on this control just allows you to set the content of the buttons to empty string, which is fine, but you still lose this space. It's just now empty string. It still occupies the same amount of stuff all the way through there. And so the question is, one, any idea, suggestion, is there a way to do this, right? Which these types of questions come in quite a bit. And this is also one of those areas where I look at these and go, you know what? A lot of these questions really could probably be solved by a little bit of AI poking at it, or just fixes to the repository. Because there's a ton of times where people try to use controls and we just haven't exposed some bit of functionality. Right. And in this case, I think this is actually one of those situations where we just haven't exposed this bit of functionality inside of here. I'm going to close those two down so I don't have to look at those. And so what I did here is I turned Copilot loose on it to say, okay, what's the way of actually going through and doing this? We're going to come back to a couple of these here in a moment. So it very helpfully went through and did this. And ultimately, after plugging around with it, we came to the conclusion of, yeah, this is just not something that's exposed. Because where is the numeric up down? There's the converter. And so this is switching out from where the padding was before and adjusting, where was it? This up-down button visibility, right? So this here, and initially it really liked the idea of going through and doing a Boolean, and I told it, no, you're an idiot. But the idea here is, before there was no way to actually deal with this stack panel, right? So the old code, there's the stack panel, shoved to the right, horizontal orientation, right? You could change the content of those buttons, right? That's a thing you could do, but ultimately there's nothing easily in here for being able to change the buttons. Though now that I look at this, I am realizing there is this dynamic up-down resource. Ooh, I bet you we may try that. that maybe we'll go back and revisit this. Maybe we'll go back and revisit this because we can probably leverage this style to be able to collapse the buttons. Let's go back and try this because I think we could get away with that as well. The other thing that I wanted to show up with is something called skills, right? Because this was something I was leveraging while doing this because I was kind of just kicking this off while not fully paying attention, right? So here's, for those who care, here's the docs form. But the thing I will call out is for most of the Copilot or AI stuff in general, it's please no fixes for up down. Using that, which makes updates top priority. Don't worry, Z. No, there's going to be no breaking changes. So that's the thing is I don't want anything breaking going in, even visual breaking. So, but that's because we have nothing of that nature yet. That's why I've already got 5 other plates spinning. Oh, believe me, I'm aware. But with a lot of these agent things, it's basically Markdown that's driving these things, right? Agent skills, though, are a way of effectively giving tools to the agent that it can choose when it wants to go through and grab them. Because we've got things like instruction files, and those can be loaded in, but they often aren't loaded on demand, right? They are there, and they either are matching or not, or they're the Copilot instructions, and they're always there. Whereas skills are something that are pulled up on demand that can provide extra context. They can also come with scripts or samples or otherwise to be very explicit about, hey, when you are doing this thing, it should be done this way, right? Codifying that type of stuff. So as a handful of examples, I had it help me out with this XAML test of running UI tests to be able to go through and do it. Because one of the things that's very frustrating to me is if you turn an agent loose on the material design repo and it decides it's going to run tests, it usually is an idiot and just kicks off all the tests, which is fine. But for example, you can see how long this thing's been running, and I can guarantee you it's running tests, because the test execution on this is kind of slow, going through and executing all of the things. Like, that is kind of problematic. And so I've got one skill here on running tests of how do you run tests with T-Unit, the Microsoft testing platform, and then more importantly, scoping this down so it doesn't just try to bloody run everything, right? Make sure you're specifying either appropriate filters or targeting individual projects and bringing this thing down further. And then the same thing for the XAML tests of, hey, when you go to kick off these UI tests, you really, really, really want to scope these things down, right? Do not try to fire off everything because that's going to be way too much, right? And more importantly, it's going to take forever, and you're going to be sitting there waiting for it, or end up killing it. So giving it some directions on how to write these and otherwise ended up giving me much better results on actually writing tests in like this, which I think is a much better place to be in. So with that said, I want to go back here and take another run at... I want to go back to, we're going to jump to master real quick. Open work tree and reset local here. Yeah, take me there. I want to go look at the, I want to look at the dynamic style. Let's see. I started using the Copilot CLI in YOLO mode for reviewing my new Enigma repo. I had to upgrade to the top tier subscription. That's now down to 85%. But I think it started making some great suggestions. Yeah, and the thing is I have been using the CLI heavily, and kicking off quite a bit of work with it. And I think spending the time to make sure that it has the tools that it needs The other thing that I will show, let's see. Right? So if we go here, one, I should probably update it because I haven't updated it today, and it almost assuredly has it. See, remaining requests. I don't know what I was at last week, but let me assure you, it was a much bigger number. Okay, load yourself up. So I will point out, I load in quite a few MCPs, right? Because so I've got an Azure, I've got an Azure DevOps, I've got the Aspire MCP, Microsoft Learn, Context 7, Coalesce is an IntelliTech Project 1. Configuring up all of this stuff gives my CLI a lot of power to start doing work, right? If you're out on GitHub, you don't need to worry about it too much. The key MCP that you need is right there. The other one that I haven't loaded on this machine is I also load in the NuGet MCP. The NuGet MCP requires .NET 10 installed because it uses a DNX command, but it is a great one for updating NuGets because rather than just having it iterate through your packages and go out to NuGet and try and check the right version, it actually uses the NuGet solver algorithm so that it's more intelligent about making sure to grab in the right stuff. I've not gotten to those yet. I need to figure out how to add my Docker MCP things. Yeah, so most of the time, so one, we can escape. So if the MCP add is the easy way to go through and do this, right? Because now you have your choice of local, standard IO, HTTP, all the way through. Give it the command in the environment variables, tools for all, and you're off to the races, right? Like this is oftentimes. Oh, I guess you also need to give it a name up here. I want to escape. Get me back out. So with all of those ones in there, like it does give you a nice, easy way to be able to launch it, right? Like the Aspire one here, you can see all of the tools available to it, the commands. The one thing that's kind of obnoxious about the CLI is where it gets its MCPs from. By default, it really wants to put these in a user profile directory. You can do them inside your repository, but as of the latest release, they used to read off the VS Code MCP config, but the release that dropped today or yesterday, this week, switched to where it's now .mcp.json rather than mcp.json. So it's like that. Honestly, the config of these is one of the most frustrating things in the world to me, that we haven't just agreed upon a single file and had all of the Microsoft Copilots use the same file. There's kind of an argument to be made that people use the tools differently in different ways and they want different MCPs in each. And I'm like, I get that, but can't we have one file that they all read and then they each have their specific files? So if you do want to configure them differently, you can, but the rest of us who really just want all the Copilots using the same MCPs in a given repo can just have one file to use. Like, I want that. So that part's mildly frustrating to me, but it does give a nice setup. Yeah, and I clearly need the update because Copilot update, do the thing. For CLI people, wait, didn't you just tell me there was an update? Or did I misread that? I must have misread that. Let me in. Yeah, go authenticate against my GitHub. Do the thing. I've got too many accounts, so it likes to auth all the time. Let's see. Not sure how to point it at the Docker desktop MCP toolkit. So I assume what you're referring to is because Docker has their own nice little, this guy, right? Browse MCP servers. Next. Yeah. Next. Yeah. Close. I believe, so I have this, like I have Playwright installed here. There is I believe, I want to say they're just hosted on I thought there was a way to connect straight to them remotely, and maybe I'm just misremembering. I started playing with this briefly, because MCPs are just simple servers that run over gRPC. I think it's gRPC. Don't quote me on that. But that can be done over either standard I/O or HTTP in most cases. Technically, server-side events is also a thing, but most of the time, like the vast majority of MCP servers are either standard I/O or HTTP. And HTTPS. Yeah, I got distracted. For some reason, Izzy, I'm not surprised. I can totally see you getting nerd sniped like that. I might have to play around with it because I started plugging this in, but because it was beta, it was like, I'll come back to it later. But I would assume that that when you host it inside of Docker, it's just a matter of either pointing it at a local host port and it gets served up over HTTP or otherwise. Because again, that's all MCP is. It's effectively a protocol over a pipe. And as long as both people are talking the same protocol on both sides, it just works. Use this MCP server. There you are. There we are. There it is. So it does run as standard I/O, it looks like. So in this case, use this MCP server. This is how it gets configured. So the command is docker, run, and then all the stuff. So if you scroll down far enough, at least on the Playwright one, it's at the very bottom. So it is just a docker run command to get this thing up and going. Because most MCPs, and the one that we may poke at on XAML test tonight, is just a CLI command, right? But it's a CLI that's typically long running, right? Most of the CLI MCP servers, you execute it, the CLI starts up, and then waits for something to connect over standard I/O, and it just uses the standard I/O to send data back and forth. That's it. It's no fancier than that. Right? And MCP just happens to be the protocol for the data that's going back and forth across the standard I/O pipes. But that's all it is. Right? Whatever client application, the CLI, VS Code, whatever you're using, right, is the other end of that pipe that starts it and connects up to the standard I/O, and then it just starts talking back and forth on it. So I would assume something like this, but you can check your whatever MCPs you've brought in, but they are probably very similar, I imagine, where it's going to be, at least inside of here, for example, right? So if I were to do MCP add, maybe call it Playwright, let's see. And then server type, local docker run -I -- remove when you're done, MCP Playwright, enable all the tools, Control S to save. And then in theory, what I expect to see is this thing to actually fire up a Docker container. Why are you authing again? Oh, I know why it's authing. It's because of my Work IQ plugin. It really, really wants to re-auth. And then in theory, once this Docker one fires up and runs, it then goes green. Or it went green for a second there. There we are. And it once again wants to auth again. Yeah, thank you. So now I have the Playwright MCP off and running. And that's all it takes. And then you need to stop clicking on the things that the Windows terminal thinks are links because it'll keep trying to open them. Stop clicking on it, you moron. Okay, close. Let's see. I'm going to do MCP delete and take that out of there because I don't want it kicking off. I don't want it accidentally kicking off on me. But there you go. And I assume once I've disconnected it, I should also see the container drop off. Yeah, which is what I would expect. Yay. So something of that nature. And then if your MCP is hosted inside of Docker, you're good to go. Because a lot of MCPs will come down with either like NPX, which is the NPM package for running the CLI commands, or DNX, which is the .NET equivalent off of NuGet. then we're off to the races. Okay, so I want to steal a handful of things. So I was going to go... Let's just go to the numeric up, down, and I'm going to grab this. So let's go here. Demo. Numeric up, down, and we're going to test this out. And so it was just pasting it here, and then obviously this thing doesn't exist. So, but what I'd like to look at is down in the theme. Very much me running down a I want the up down button. What are you squawking about here? Interesting. I don't know why that's thrown on the scroll bar. Nested numeric up down button style. This is a dynamic resource. So I think what I can do, we're going to test this. Do that, and then we're gonna go small up, down. Nope, don't do that. You're not being helpful. Resources. Okay, so I think if we do this guy here and we do a style, let's see, X key. Nope, stop helping me. Want that one. There we go. Based on, and then I think what we need is the actual, where's this guy at? Oof. This is actually inside of here. We may not be able to hijack it because I think it's going to resolve button base, and button base is probably often something I'm not referencing. Oh no, copied the wrong one, and so we need a target type, button base, and then I think what I can do is inside of this style, setter property visibility collapsed. So the question is, does that get me direct access to the button style? I do have this suspicion that that because this style is nested underneath this style's resources, it's going to win and be closer. But I am actually not 100% certain. Oh, look at that. It works just fine. Works just fine. So, okay. That is perfect. So that is actually the better solution. What is the XML file used for? Great question. So inside of WPF, so the suffix is XAML, XAML. This is a XML format for laying out the UI. So and I will say this came out in 2005, which I'm aware is more than 2 decades old. So there is an updated version of XAML that is used by some of the newer frameworks. It has a version 2009, 2011, something like that. But it supports a lot more features. It's a little bit more cleaned up and otherwise. But it follows the same basic syntax. There's more nicety features inside of it. So, yeah, this one does not do generics, which is problematic. Oh, and for people who haven't noticed, look. I have a fox, I have a ducky, a bunny, and I got Clippy. I know. It's I watched the video that was shared by somebody on the stream last time, and where is it? Mads Christensen, the mad scientist, has ported the VS Code Pets extension to Visual Studio. So you too can have little pets walking around on your Visual Studio instances. So that's exciting if you're interested. Why? It was cool to have a little thing down there. Frankly, I think sometimes it's easy for me to get distracted by other things moving, and this just, I don't know, it gives my eyes something to chase. Some people find them incredibly distracting, so if they're bothering people, we can always get rid of them. But you know, there's fun stuff in there. So they just spawn and start walking. Okay, so I want to go back though, and we may end up scrapping this PR. I think I want to submit review. Oh, it won't let me. I don't like how GitHub does this. DevOps lets me make them bigger. I don't know if size is an option. Size is not really a thing. Speed and random behaviors and random idle animations. And you can add pets. You've got choices. And you've got color choices. Not a lot of color choices, but you have color choices. So I think mine are all random colors. We can add a T-Rex. Because who doesn't need a little T-Rex? He's there. He's not a very proportional T-Rex, but he's there. So, there's that. Okay. So I want to go back to this one here. It is not overly obvious, but there is a way to take control of the internal buttons using a style and modify properties like this. Okay, so let's go back to my little doohickey here. And we are going to grab this guy here. And we are going to paste it there. Let's see here. The key is to make sure the style is named okay. We'll comment there, and I'm going to label this guy as a question because I don't know that it's actually that big of a thing. Okay, and that change did not fix my test failures. That is very... See, this is the other problem, right? 17 minutes every single one of these runs. It's very, very, very frustrating. Let's see here. Let's see here. Which one failed here? Scrolling tabs should scroll when clicked. Timeout. So where did it die at? Looking for the line number here. Tab control test line 416. Okay, so let's go back. I want to let's switch work trees. Oh no, this was on the main one. We can scrap this now. We've got what we need. Demo 3 release. Okay, so yes to all. Okay, so let's go here. Nope, I did not copy the right thing. We are going to grab this, come back here, jump to it. Let's see, 17 minutes, is that it? My build tests in the office take around 3 hours. Yes, but Izzy, this is probably a much smaller system than what you're building. And I'd actually like to get it even tighter if I could. There's a handful of things that I've now decided I'd like to add into XAML test. One is it always goes through and tries minimizing windows on the active monitor, specifically so that during CI it doesn't run into the issue of like the runner host window sitting on top, right? Which is fine. It's just really obnoxious when it runs locally. So I would like to get some control over that behavior so it doesn't just kick off that way every time. And then there's a number of tests that if they don't require UI interaction, that I can intentionally set the window to not take focus, right? So I want to give myself some way of popping the window, because you can always start a new window and not bring it to the front. That's a thing you can set on Windows, but by default, it wants to come to the front. And I want to change it so that it intentionally doesn't do that, simply so that when I am running locally, I want to have a way of flagging my tests so that I can say, hey, by the way, this thing doesn't need UI interaction. Don't bring it to the front, right? We're not worried about mouse clicks or keyboard input or any of that stuff where focus would matter. Just leave it in the back. And maybe that's a better way of putting it, is when focus doesn't matter on the test, it doesn't need to come forward. Like we've got a bunch of tests that are all around just color validations. Great. None of those require UI interaction. So I can leave those things sitting in the back. Okay, so let's stop this here for a moment, and then I want to run this locally because I'm going to go out on a limb. This thing probably passes because this is where we converted it over from a weird timeout, and then it specifically said 416. So it's this longer one here. Interesting. Did we capture... Trying not to move my mouse. Hands up. No touching. Let's see. WPF question. Is it safe to update bindings from a background thread in WPF, or should we always go back to the UI thread? WPF seems to handle it automatically, but can we rely on that behavior? Yes, but I'm going to put a couple caveats on it. For basic bindings to properties, yes, that is perfectly acceptable. Some notable exceptions that are worth being aware of. So, emphasis on binding to a property. If you are binding to an observable collection, that by default is not handled for you. So, let me look here. I think we have some examples of it. Let me bring this onto the screen. So if I go... collection sync. Oh, do we not have it in here at all? Let's see here. About observable collection. So there we go. Okay. So we've got an observable collection here. So one of the things that often bites people is with observable collections. And this is largely historical of the order in which this happened, of why this exists the way that it does. So this grid data here is labeled as an observable collection, and it doesn't look like it even needs to be observable because we only set it in the constructor, which doesn't really matter. But let's imagine we're updating this from a background thread. This would throw if I updated this collection from a background thread. And it's not the binding's fault that's the problem. It's the iNotify collection changed that's the problem. Because the iNotify property change, the binding handles that. But if I mutate this collection, it raises iNotify collection changed. And that's problematic. So the way you would typically handle that is there is a collection... no, not collection extensions. What is the... collection view source, and what I may have to go look up where this is, because it's called enable collection view. No, it's enable collection synchronization is the method. Yeah, that method, that one there. Binding operations, that's where it is. See? So, binding operations, enable collection synchronization. So, what you would typically do here, because in order to get iNotify collection change to play nice with the UI thread, oftentimes your options are do something with the dispatcher to get yourself back to the UI thread. But the only reason you have to go back to the UI thread is because it needs some amount of synchronization when you're doing collection changes to be able to update properly. So what enable collection synchronization does is it says, okay, if you've done anything with WinForms, they have the sync lock object that you would lock on before touching the UI. And that's the agreed upon contract to say, hey, before you touch this thing, we're going to lock on this object. That's what enable collection synchronization does. So we could do grid data, and then you could just actually feed it any object reference you want. And what will happen then is before anything mucks with this collection, the agreed upon contract will now be we lock on this object instance. And so now I can go through and modify grid data from a background thread and be okay. So if you are using observable collections and you want to update those from a background thread, you're going to want to make sure you do this enable collection synchronization on the observable collection. Otherwise, you will get bit by it there. The only other case that's worth noting, and it's kind of an anti-pattern if you're already doing this, but if you have any sort of view objects in your view model, those ones you won't be able to update from a background thread. Right? So I've seen people occasionally, they'll have like a button property that they're binding to like content or otherwise. Again, it's kind of an anti-pattern if you're doing it, but if the data type of your property derives from dependency object, that's another case where you might have to deal with getting yourself off the background thread and onto the UI thread before updating the property. But yes, in general, you can rely on the binding handling that behavior for you and it being just fine. Right? So in that regard, yes, you can rely on updating a property from a background thread and not blowing up with those kind of two caveats, right? Unless we're talking about modifying an observable collection, in which case then it's not safe, or if the data type of your property is something that is a UI object, usually meaning it derived from a dependency object somewhere in its hierarchy. So beyond that, you're safe and good to go. Okay. Test Explorer. It probably doesn't bode well that this test failed locally. So what did I do wrong here? Because I mucked with this test. Oh, no, I did. 416. It's right there. So before it was a commented out wait, and before there was a delay that was being put on there. So the scroll viewer get horizontal offset. So this wasn't a thing before, right? Because this was the comment of this is inconsistent. Right. So let's take a brief gander here. I want to look at, so clearly I've just written bad code. So what exactly is this doing here? We've got a tab control here that's being built out. So we've got a string builder, which is fine. A whole bunch of tabs, that's fine. Those are being inserted into the middle. We've got some additional properties, fine. So it is just a tab control with use navigation panel and scroll behavior. Those are the two. Should scroll when clicked, because the whole premise behind this is clicking the tab and seeing the tab shift across. So This one returned true. Get overflowing. Right next button. It found it and it left clicked it. And then the expectation is that the scroll viewer inside of the tab control has its horizontal offset moved. Okay, I want to debug this test. I don't know why I have a breakpoint there. Probably left over from something else. So we go there. Oh, interesting. So this is probably the problem. So what I'm immediately noticing is my breakpoint has been hit. And I realize this is, again, something else. XAML test wants to set topmost on the windows. Again, something else I want to have some control over. Like I want it to allow the window to go to the back, and only at the last second when focus matters, bring it forward, let it hit, and then push it back where it came from. But I'm noticing the right button isn't enabled yet. So we're gonna kick this off. The button comes enabled later. Got it. Okay. So okay. So let's do this. So let's wait for the button to become enabled. That's probably part of this problem. Okay. That is almost assuredly not making our life any easier. Stop it. Stop helping me. Await. Right. Next button. Get is enabled. Yeah. There. I am wondering if that's going to get me a lot closer, because now I'm guessing what's happening is this thing is rendering in and it hasn't actually processed that all of the tabs are there yet. There. Now it's enabled. Now it's executed the click. And now it's shifted. I think I wiggled the mouse and broke it on that one. But let me go back here. I'm going to run this locally and just make sure this thing hit properly. So there's that one. There's that one. I don't know that the first one triggered properly. So why did that one not work? So let's see, which test is this? Is this the one with the, so this is with the horizontal content alignment left. Okay. I'm also somewhat tempted. Use block body. I am somewhat tempted. Nope, not what I wanted. Not what I wanted. I am tempted to do this as well. Try that. Because by moving the click in there, it'll on every retry, it'll then attempt to re-click. Because at the end of the day, I don't care if we accidentally click twice. I care that we click. I think that's better. That way, it doesn't matter how many are there. It gives it time to adjust. I think that is better. I want to do the same fix up above. So this is going to be there. Why do we have basically the same test in two places? Oh, this is the select behavior. This is another one of those areas where I think we could get a lot of performance boost by flattening these into one test and like having all of the tabs on the same one. Like that's one of those things that doesn't always track for everybody, is that UI tests are different than than unit tests. And so testing more than one thing in a single shot is sometimes actually the right solution because they're very costly to run. Like, ideally, I want as few UI tests as possible and have this thing still work. Oh, failed. Which one failed there? Oh, selected index is equal to 1. Oh, so it probably double dipped. Probably double dipped. Get selected index. So hold on, let me just make sure I understand what this is doing. Scroll tabs should change selected tab when clicked. I think we just want greater than or equal to. Because if it does end up double clicking, like, that's fine. Yeah, because it is double clicking. It's like that first one goes over and then without the delay. I'm guessing what's happening is the animation is yeah, one would argue it breaks a single responsibility, but it is a test. Yeah, no, and that is totally fair. I would posit though that single responsibility doesn't apply to an integration or an end-to-end test, right? It's more about did you get all the way there and not the individual parts of the journey, right? Like for a unit test, I could certainly get on board with that. Okay, so that fixes at least those two. So we're going to go here. We're going to pretend like nothing happened. We're going to move me to the other side. We're going to auto code the message. For our UI test, we try to perform a user process, which is a single responsibility. How do you define single responsibility for a user process? Though, because I assume in this case, when you say user process, you mean a single task that the user is looking to accomplish. I assume that's the intent behind it. Okay, I'm trying to decide if I want to keep any of these skills or if I want to axe this branch altogether. We might come back to it. Okay. So with that all said, I want to go back to XAML test. Oh, wait. There was one more PR I wanted to look at. I wanted to go back here because there was this one here that looked very interesting. User must be able to do X from the Y UI app. Okay. See, and I think I can get on board with that. I in that case, it's still single responsibility. It's just pulled up logically to a much higher level to the user's point. And I think for me on these UI tests, I might go as far as to say, well, the scrolling tab behavior is the one UI thing, and I would pull that all the way up and collapse some of the tests together. Rising Reckon, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Welcome in. It's good to have you here. We are having fun with some WPF in the Material Design and XAML project. Okay, so this one here, this is very much all in the Material Design 3 spec. Okay, so I'm very curious because this is one of those areas where the same contributor is the one who did the new color library stuff as well, which is great. Let's see here. So let's go pull requests. I'm looking at the wrong repo. That doesn't work. Pull requests. My big head is in the way. But that's our requirement, and we map multiple tests to each requirement, as the user task will always touch multiple requirements. Yeah, no, and that, I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Of walking through there. For XAML tests, the really costly thing in the speed is the spinning of the extra process for the WPF shell. So the more tests I can collapse to not having to spin separate shells and reusing window content gives significant speed increases. Let's see. Wait. Add remote and checkout. Boy, for some reason I'm like, I don't see it. Oh. Because he often uses just the master branch name. Okay. So let's go here. And I want to look at what he did on the Material Design 3 demo. Because this is something people have asked. Makes it easier to explain to both tech and non-tech stakeholders. Yeah, I completely believe that. Okay, so people have often asked for theme builders inside of this library, and I've not built it yet. Oh, wrong button. And I do wonder if this... Why do chips not have an icon? That seems weird. Okay, so let's take a brief gander at what got added here. So dynamic color tool. So let's look here. Dynamic color tool is here. You have one new notification. Yeah, shut up. So leverages that. Secondary stays schema generated until you switch it to custom. So if I do this, I'm surprised this is not switching. I kind of expected with auto it to change. Maybe I'm missing something. What is capturing the mouse wheel? Why do I have to manually grab this? Let's see, what do we got down here? Generated colors. Let's see, what do we got? Theme mode. Dark, light. Okay, so it has those. Scheme neutral, vibrant. Oh, so maybe it's not these colors I expect to change, but these ones down here, because there's the secondary and tertiary in the air. So if I take this and put it over to green, right, I should get something very different. You probably couldn't decide between Texas Hold'em or fries. Not wrong. This is actually really nice. So the other thing that really it makes this interesting to me, so this naming scheme here of on primary, primary container, on primary container, fixed, these I believe directly line up with the material design M3 component themes. I believe this lines directly into the color. Is it color rolls? I think is where this is. Yeah, so you'll note this whole system here. I was gonna say I've seen this layout before. It looks remarkably similar to that. This is kind of cool. Why is my... So I'm moving my mouse wheel right now, and I'm a little concerned as to why this scroll bar isn't capturing my mouse wheel and scrolling. I am thinking that it would be nice if the secondary and tertiary updated as this moved, right? Because that clearly updates and changes down here, right? If I drag this over into the yellow area and go up, or much more yellow, right? Get into the orange system, right? I sort of expect this secondary and this secondary to show the same color as it goes. And then, right, and it shows up all of those. Oh man. What is the difference between platform and watch? I don't know how much... Oh, and it allows you to change your contrast level. Oh no, that's kind of cool. I like how it... Oh man, that's slick. That is slick. Are they not just selecting the base color for... Yeah, well, so these ones up here don't appear to be updating as the auto goes. They seem to be stuck on wherever that other one was. I'm curious what platform watch does. Let's see. Inspect a custom semantic swatch as a tonal palette and create. Oh, that's okay. This is kind of cool. This is kind of cool. All right, and I'm guessing if I go this way, I'll see the. I'm actually surprised I can't get the. I was trying to see if I could get the tonal one. Let's see. The underneath is how the theme is viewable. Yeah, so it looks like, and I'll go through and check the PR a little closer. That. So really, there's a handful of things going on here. I think the layout of this. So one, I think the updates here and here, I may just go make those real quick to make these auto update, because I would expect the secondary and tertiary ones to basically be in line with what this is, right? This guy up here is doing that, and I'd be willing to bet that this is exactly bound. I do wonder how much we care about system theme here, because it feels like you really just need a light dark toggle, because system is really more about inherent light or dark from the system, which is fine. It's cool that this scheme is in place as well. And this is, so that's kind of cool as well. I'm curious what the spec version does, and I'm curious what the platform does, because I'm not sure platform is a relevant thing for us. I'm also somewhat wondering if I almost want to bring this up to the right. It's hard to say, because if the window's small, yeah, I almost want to move this guy up to the right and then let it wrap. That way on larger screens, you don't have this gap. And I want to fix whatever this scroll bar issue is. But this is kind of cool. I'm also somewhat tempted to put a tab control up here and move the custom colors to a secondary tab, just so that there is a back and forth. Generate the theme based upon the color. The hard part, though, is in Windows, because I think I looked at this at one point, is, yeah, this guy here. Is a lot of these ones here, there's only a single color. And I guess, and before, my problem was that could get me the primary color of the theme, but I had no good way of generating the secondary color for the Material Design 2 or the tertiary in Material Design 3. But if we have auto, it does kind of kick the door open a little bit to say maybe we could add a theming option for reading the system color, setting that as the primary. And if you go that route, you just have to accept that you're going to get secondary and tertiary as auto. Because the other thing right now is this library doesn't expose the tertiary in its theming because it doesn't use it anywhere. Nothing stops you from adding your own tertiary brushes. It's just there are no controls that leverage the tertiary brushes. because we already have, if we look at like buttons, right? We have these variants of the buttons, but there's no like, because this is your primary and your secondary, there is no tertiary set of buttons, right? Maybe there should be. But it's been one of those cases where, because nothing stops you from defining your own tertiary brush and just assigning the background color based on that, great, have at it, right? Like that's a thing you can always do. And so people who want a tertiary button, what does use those colors? Right, so these ones in here, this doesn't appear to do anything other than give you the color codes that you could copy out yourself, right? Oh, it's interesting. Interesting. Sorry, there's something weird about these copy buttons too. Something weird about the hit zone of the copy buttons. Okay, so there's something weird going on. Let's take a little closer look at the PR. I want to go back and I want to open up the running action. Okay, so let's take a look at this. So this looks fine. Demo view, model domain. Okay, so that one's fine, no biggie. That's the XAML. We'll come back to it. Let's see, enum option, not a big deal. Let's see, off topic. Got any suggestions for a tool that can help search through the subtitles of all your YouTube videos to find timestamp for specific topics or discussions? Sometimes I vaguely recall a conversation but can't remember which video it's in. Oh. Yes. So not really. Not really. I assume you are already looking at my subtitles link where I have the repo, right? So for people unaware, you can query these, and I've got the tool that generates these is in this repo. So you can always use the GitHub search just to go through and go with this. Cloning's another option if you wanted to like grep something locally. I have hopes of actually trying to build something that vectorizes this content. There's some streams that I did with a colleague, Casey, a while back, where we started building out this AI framework. This was back, I think, a couple years ago, where RAG was the next big thing. And so this is basically just a RAG system over my individual content. I keep having this thought that I should actually go through and put together a RAG style database to have this work. Chris, welcome in with everybody. Good to have you, buddy. Hopefully you had a wonderful stream, going through and doing some very interesting stuff. Welcome in. For those people interested, we are mostly poking at PR reviews on my material design library. So material design for Windows desktop apps. Some people think it is heresy to use Google's material design inside of a Windows app. I say if it looks pretty, do it. But yeah, slight distraction for the moment. So, and actually, Chris, I'm curious if you have any suggestions on this one. So the question raised here was, I go through and on all of my streams, I do end up posting them over to YouTube. I've got a little FFmpeg doohickey that cleans up a little bit of stuff, but then it posts it. And then I go one step further and I generate these markdown files from the YouTube generated subtitle track that hyperlink back to that timestamp in the YouTube video. And I did this only so that I can do things like, right? So I can just search Kraken, and now I can start to find every video where I've talked about get cracking in some places, because it is YouTube doing it. So I just know that when I say get cracking, YouTube has no idea what I mean, and so it often messes up a little bit. But I can then hunt it and be able to pull stuff out. Yeah, get cracking. But the question was tools to go through and do this. And a while, like I think a year and a half, 2 years ago, I had started down this idea of building a little RAG system with a colleague of mine, and we ended up stopping at one point, because at least at that point I burned tokens very quick going through and vectorizing and storing all of this stuff. And then it wasn't really cost effective to host, but it feels like there should be, especially since RAG is now old hat, that there should be an easy way of dumping this into some system for better indexing. Because obviously I can just cheat and leverage the GitHub indexing of the repo, because these are just markdown files. ChromaDB might be nice. See, now you're going to make me go look stuff up. Because it is an interesting idea of how to go through and host this somewhere, because it's not a huge amount of data, especially as the raw markdown. Like I've got stuff from 5-6 years ago, but it does go through and gen this stuff up for me, because I'm way too lazy to do this. Way too lazy. Support vector full text regex. Interesting. Let's see here. So I assume I'm looking at the right thing based upon your description. Fast, serverless, scalable, full text, regex, and metadata search. This looks interesting. Yeah, and that's fairly simple, because I would not mind plugging something into my pipeline on these things that goes through and just pushes something up. Because it does feel like this is definitely something that appropriately indexed could be very interesting. I've also thought of, and I've got some old streams where before I was using the YouTube subtitles, I was actually using Microsoft's cognitive services to go through and voice to text all the way through. But their free tier was somewhat problematic if I streamed for a long period of time. Let's see. Jovit's thing. Okay. Interesting. Okay, well, one, this looks like it deserves a star to begin with. Interesting. Okay. Oh, okay. Cool. So with Claude Code. And yes, for views, Mila Jovovich from The Fifth Element and terrible Resident Evil films. Awesome. I'll take it. Okay. Yeah. So Hessen, to go back to your question, I don't think I have an answer for you today, but I might have an answer for you soon. Because this does feel like something that could be fun to build out, of index the streams such that they are easier to search. Because I will admit that the entire reason why I put those markdown files out in a GitHub repository is shamelessly so that I can search for my own stuff. Because the number of times I'll have a colleague or someone ask me a question, I'll be like, man, I feel like I talked about that on stream not that long ago. And I like, even if it's, hey, I know I talked about that on stream last night, I can't remember whether it was 30 minutes in or an hour and a half in. And frankly, I can't tolerate listening to myself that long. So having a way of indexing myself so that I could send them my own links in, it's very, very convenient. A vibe coded AI memory layer. Yeah. No, and this very much looks interesting. What did they start a plan was $5 in free credits. I mean, it's fairly cheap. Storage gig per month, 33 cents. I mean, I don't even know if I'm at 1 gig of markdown files yet. They have cloud, but you can run it to fully open source. Oh, interesting. Okay. So if I don't go with their hosted solution and I just bring it up myself, is this pricing entirely for their hosting? And then if I want to run it myself, if I put it up on my own infrastructure? Because that would be cool. That would be very, very cool if I could do it that way. Because I would, yeah, hit the GitHub repo. Ah ha 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 ha. Well, hang on. Once again, people who do good work deserve stars. Let's see. Hybrid full text. There's the setup. Learn all about the features in our docs. Manage collections, add data, update data. Running a Chroma server. That sounds like what I want. Sounds like a good idea for my Raspberry Pi. Oh, that's stupid simple. Will persist data in the path you provide. Oh, that's remarkably easy. Okay. That's very trivial. Cloud login profile management. Is there a... I haven't used it myself, but it seems awesome. Yeah, it certainly does. I have to believe somebody has done... somebody has got to have put out an image, right? Right, so look at that. Oh, no, hold on. That's their MCP. Look at that. Look at that. Of course, there's a nice Docker image for it. Excellent. Excellent. What I heard is we've got an Aspire project to build. Because this definitely feels like something I could plug in. Yes. Yes. Okay. Okay, Hessen, we may have a project to build here in a little bit. This feels like something that could be very useful in that regard. Because I'll just spin it up and throw it. Because I've got a container app environment that I'm already hosting my stuff in, so I can just spin another container app, and it shouldn't be hard. So that can be fun. Okay, I'm gonna save that for the moment. So the answer right now is no, the GitHub search is the best I've got, but the answer soon can be something different. Dang nabbit, did this thing fail out again? Oh, you piece of garbage. What is your problem now? Quit your whining. Why will the test not stop being flaky? Scrolls and brings selected tab into view. Well, crap. It's the same file, new line number. Yeah. Okay. Hold the phone real quick while we go and fix this. Is this... Yeah, same bug, different verse. Dang nabbit. What is this one doing here? Because this one, it's almost assuredly the exact same issue. So 468. Bum. 468. So it's waiting for the content offset to shift, but it's not waiting. So it's not waiting for the button to become enabled before attempting to click it, which means it is almost assuredly going to fail. So wait for, let's see, async. Let's go that way, that way, that way. Oh, I did that wrong. Get is enabled. I can type, I promise. Just not good at it. Okay, so wait for the thing to become enabled. And then this guy here, I think we can do the same thing we did on the other one. Block body, shift it down, do the left click inside of the offset check. Select an arbitrary tab, index 8. This should be fine. The tab's never disable. Wait for that thing to go there. Get the horizontal offset. And I think I'm going to do the same thing that we do here is, in this case, the tab should already be loaded, so it shouldn't be a big deal. But we're going to wait for the button to be enabled before doing it. Then click it. And once again, we're going to move this guy inside. Boom. That way, if it fails, it will catch it. Let's see. Select the last visible tab. I am going to bring this guy, we're going to undo this change, because this tab one won't work being the last visible if it double left clicks. So we can't have that in the retry logic. That should be fine. I mean, that gets us at least past the current failure. And once again, there's only one failure, so Okay, let's just test it locally real quick and make sure it works. Stop executing. Stop executing, run test. My Mountain Dew is empty. For people who just joined recently from Chris's stream, welcome in. I'm Kevin. I tend to do a lot of C#.NET stuff. I have a soft spot for WPF and XAML, but I do a little bit of Aspire and whatever else cuts my fancy, because it is all fun. I typically stream once a week, Thursday nights for me in Pacific time, which I am fully aware that my streaming hours are absolutely atrocious because I target English-speaking developers. And I start streaming at 9 p.m. Pacific time when the vast majority of English-speaking developers are either up way later than they should be or asleep. So, but unfortunately with family and other things, it is the only time slot that works for me. So that's what I got. But you can catch recordings on the YouTube or Twitch or however you want to do it. And then I'm actually going to be traveling the next couple weeks, but I do have some recorded videos that are going to be coming out on Thursday on my YouTube. Some interviews with some other people from industry. Next Thursday is the project manager from the Aspire team at Microsoft, Maddie. So if you know anything about Aspire, to quote her, Aspire is a framework for building apps. Any app that has multiple components to it, right? You've got a front end, a back end, a database, right? The idea of having to spin all of those things up often is a little more difficult. Aspire makes it so that I can just press F5 and all the stuff spins up, right? Docker containers, wires the ports, does the configuration. It's not anything overly magical. It used to be very .NET-y based, but they have TypeScript and everything. If you don't want to touch C#, you don't have to touch C#. But it does give you kind of this orchestration layer to be able to get all of those components up and running. And it's, in my opinion, really cool. In the .NET space, they really just took all of these kind of components that .NET has had that most people would have to know to go and turn on, and they just take an opinion of, hey, this is one of the good ways of building and deploying those apps. So if you're at all interested in that, I had a great discussion with Maddie. That comes out next Thursday on my YouTube, and it should be good. And there will be another special guest who I am remaining secret because I haven't recorded it with him yet, but I'm recording it early next week. So that will be 2 weeks, the 23rd. So, okay, did Tess go green? No. That doesn't leave me with a lot of warm fuzzies. Let's see. So where did we go wrong here? That's, I want the first throw. Wait for get selected tab 8. See the timeout. I want to add in something that actually does a better check here because it didn't get the right expectation here. What is this retry set to? Retry 10. So what is going on here? Select an arbitrary tab. I wonder if this one's actually biting me as well. And actually, I think this is a simple matter of the animation time of the tabs moving. I think. So let's give this a shot here real quick and see, because I think this will, just so sick of this flaky test. I just want my other change to merge. And Sohaya, probably butchering that. I'm bad at names and it's late. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Okay. Same spot? No new spot. Nope. Same line number. So why are you just breakpoint? What are you doing wrong? Because it's expecting to have left clicked the right next button. I just watched it animate. And then, yeah, it did the thing. So, and now it goes green. Of course it goes green. So there's a timing issue still here. See, so it may not be obvious to people, but I'm seeing the click occur and I'm wondering, oh, I bet you I know what's happening. The delay isn't here. The delay is here. That's what's going on. That is what is going on. Because the offset check is already inside of a wait, so it'll retry. But the timing delay between when the button's enabled and when it's able to accept the clicks is not 0. That's what's doing it. Okay. Okay. That's the okay. 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 I feel dumb. I feel dumb. That's okay. Some days it's good to feel dumb. Let's do. What is your problem? There we go. Okay. Alexa, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Aha! There we go. That looks pretty. That looks pretty. Okay, pass. Works on my machine. Works on my machine. Okay, get my big head out of the way. Amend prior commit. Amend. Push. Force push, and we are off to the races. Okay, we'll let that guy go, and then I want to go back to here for the pretty demo. So this is the other PR that we were looking at. Is a very nice contributor has created this nice pretty theme color designer here, following the material design spec through all of this stuff, which is pretty slick, right? Like, and then we can say show it to me in light theme, show it to me in dark theme, and it's got the different tonals: vibrant, expressive. Oh, it's interesting that expressive actually flips the generated color. Like this feels like something that at some point I actually want to tie into my automatic theming inside the library. JD, thanks for the sub. I appreciate it. I do want, so there's a couple things I want to go through and fix on this. One is when the secondary and tertiary are set to auto, I believe what we want to do is make sure that these bindings go up. And there is something weird about the, I don't know how well it's coming across stream, but the point at which this ripple is showing on this button, something is off. It's not, like right now, I would expect the ripple to show and it's not there. But it shows up when I get around. It's like there's a pack icon that's intercepting the mouse hover. And that's the best I can theorize. So we'll check that in a moment. Let's go back to here. So I wanted to I was just checking the PR review. So there's the title in there. Column span. Okay, so it's data bound doing this grid layout down below. So this one down here, which that's fine. For people unfamiliar with it, here's the Google's material design spec. I strongly suspect he based it entirely on this, which is great. He's recreated that layout inside of my demo app, so I'll take it. I will take it. Okay, so that looks fine to me. Let's see. Enum for the color picker. This one here, I do question the need for system on the picker. So system is more of a runtime thing. Let's see. Don't need that. Let's see. Hamburger toggle menu. I think we revert this change because I don't think we want it's what's automatically opening this sidebar as soon as the app launches, and I think we want to revert that change. I suspect that was probably accidental. Let's see. This brings in the color utilities project, which is one that I want to, at some point I want to look at adding this in and actually shipping this as part of the various colors. Let's see, color utilities, dynamic color. That is fine there. Yeah, because there are quite a few, and these are, oh, that's interesting. There's the got it. Oh, this is awesome. So this is the difference between the 2021 and the 2025 spec. Got it. It impresses me that one, somebody was motivated enough to build all of these out. And this is the thing with the color library that this person contributed. It is incredibly detailed. Incredibly detailed. I've been pleasantly surprised at the amount of stuff here. The only thing that's weird, like I said, is he tends to just PR from his master branch, wait for the PR to merge, and then submit the next one. Just fine. But it does, if people are interested, like in general, you make your own branch. You make a branch off of master to do your work on. That way you aren't bound waiting for it. But I understand some people are less familiar with branching and otherwise. if people are interested too, if you search my YouTube, for Hacktoberfest, for several years, the first week of October, I would dedicate my stream to going through and basically teaching kind of an intro to open source development. Because Hacktoberfest is something put on by DigitalOcean every year, and they used to give out T-shirts if you got 5 PRs submitted and accepted by a maintainer, which was kind of cool being a maintainer because I was going to commit 5 of my own PRs to my repos anyway, so I would just get a free T-shirt out of it, which was great. But they dialed that back partly because it got very, very popular, and they had a lot of T-shirts to put out. They still do good work. I think last year was planting trees for everybody who got so many PRs merged, which is great. I can appreciate it. But it did kind of lower my motivation a little bit because shockingly, I'm motivated by T-shirts. Actually, I'm motivated by cheap swag. It's probably bad to be motivated by something like that, but yeah. Let's see. Most of the old guys at my work can't get their heads around branches. Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you were in the stream yet, Izzy, but I was kind of talking like, I don't know, I'll call it AI philosophy. The idea that I do believe that that in the very very near future, like AI tool use will be as common as source control. And because right now, if somebody's not using source control, we almost always just assume like it's a knowledge gap thing, right? Somebody just hasn't been shown the awesomeness that is source control. Like we can bicker about, which client application is best because it's obviously Git Kraken, or where to host your repos or that kind of thing, right? But there is functionally everybody who I've never met an engineer who understands source control who doesn't elect to use it. It's like, why would you not? It's awesome, right? Everyone who I've seen who doesn't use source control, it's usually because they don't understand it. JC, welcome in. And yes, Izzy, it is a Mountain Dew, a Baja Blast. So yeah, I do kind of believe that that's where things are headed. And I think there'll be lots of debates about which tool, how to use it, that kind of thing. But I suspect it will easily be very similar, where it's everybody's using it in some capacity or otherwise. I'm surprised there's no AI Git hook to pre-review changes. I'm trying to not put my foot in my mouth, Izzy. Come back after I'm back from my my trip, and we should talk. There are people thinking of that. Okay, so main view model. Let's see here. So material design colors, palette helper, color command, pulls the theme manager out, watches for it. That's kind of clever. So he's already also watching the theme manager to make sure that this thing. I still want to figure out what is hijacking my scroll bar. So he's actually watching this guy here as well. So I assume if I toggle this. No. So what exactly is updating? Update computed state. Oh, so it's just this computed state, not the dropdown. Okay, so as other things are changing the theme, it's going through and adjusting it, right? So this is changing the theme of the generated colors, right? So that goes there. But this is changing the theme of the demo application. Interesting. I almost wonder if I want to make those two tied together and bind them to the same thing so that they don't move out of sync. Okay, and so we've got the disjoint of the enum selectors. Great. Yeah, I've seen people do this kind of thing with enum options a lot of different ways. Some people like decorating enums with like a description attribute or otherwise so that these things can be kind of reflection-y derived. I don't hate it. It's like, this is a common enough pattern. Let's see. I was trying to make one linked to Jira so commits fail if no task ID and message, and given the reasoning score in the commit based upon the task details. Yeah. If you are on GitHub, I will show you this here. Especially since you mentioned that you were playing with CLI and similar. So this is effectively if the moment you start playing with the GitHub CLI and you think, boy, I'd really like to plug this into like a GitHub action to start running on fancy insert AI conditioning stuff here. Yeah, that's basically what this is built into the box for you, of being able to go through and spin out effective workflows or otherwise, right? So issue triage, activity report, documentation updating, keeping your agents MD up to date, all of this stuff where it's slightly more complicated than what you would get out of like a static analysis tool. Because it's like, it's close to static analysis, but the amount of kind of code or similar that you would have to write would be a little bigger versus what you can do with effective prompting all the way through. It starts with the GitHub CLI, and so your AW here is agentic workflow. And so initialize up the repository, make sure that it's working. It is very much dependent on going through and configuring to be able to run on your Copilot subscription. And so do be aware that, especially if you're on a paid tier, they do also double dip you a little bit. Is because this runs on GitHub Actions, it does consume your GitHub Action minutes. And then it's also running on your Copilot license, so it does also count against your premium requests as well. So just be aware that it does kind of double dip you, which feels bad, man. But if you were to build it yourself, it would double dip the same, right? So it's like, I couldn't build it myself and have it not hit my actions and my GitHub stuff. So some of those things where if you are looking for a hook, obviously you're describing it on like a commit hook, so like before the push, whereas this would be triggering like on the branch push or otherwise, right? But it does give you some really fancy ways of doing some pretty cool stuff where it's like, boy, it'd be really cool that this thing that I'm always running with my CLI, if I could just, trigger that with an action, well, guess what? That's exactly what you can do. So you can combine your GitHub action power with this and go to town. And again, some of the things in here are kind of cool. And honestly, the issue in PR management is one of those things where I'm like, man, for open source maintainers that sometimes die in issues coming in and trying to keep up with them, I will say I'm eyeing this very, very closely. Like, boy, this would be great, right? It's also a great way to separate it, and I do think this is a big risk right now with AI. Is like enterprises with big budgets, it won't matter as much to them, but like open source indie developers, like they don't have big budgets. Somebody's going to foot the bill for this stuff, right? And so it does feel like there might end up starting to be this bigger and bigger gap between what your open source developers can stomach and what your enterprise ones can stomach, because one of those has a bigger budget for tokens and the other one may not be getting one. So it's scary. That part scares me a little bit, especially seeing all the reports of, how much software is built on top of open source and similar. It's like, boy, it'd be really great to see some of those go out. With that said, there's been a handful of foundations and support coming in from Microsoft, Google, and otherwise trying to push money towards open source projects. And oftentimes open source projects, they don't usually have a good way of saying, well, I need this much money to maintain it, right? Because oftentimes open source is set up to where their operating cost is very low or cheap, right? They don't have a lot of paid stuff because that's not what they're doing. But now it feels like if anybody were to offer, I would absolutely jump on the idea of saying, yeah, if somebody wanted to sponsor the project, the thing that I would like you to fund is tokens. That is what I would like. Let's see. I love the idea of a pre-commit hook, and I'd probably run something like open code in a local model. Yeah, no, and I know a handful of people that are getting some, I'll say, decent results out of local models. It does take a beefier system to run stuff, but you can get decent results, right? It's not going to be Claude Opus or GPT 5.4 or something massive, but you can get fairly good results, especially if it's not, if you're not doing anything too crazy with it. Again, ask me again in a couple weeks, maybe as soon as next week. There's some stuff in the works that would make that a lot nicer, that I think is pretty cool. Yeah, at some point it'd be nice to have an on-premise version that doesn't use tokens. Yeah, or doesn't use paid, like it's going to use tokens, but obviously tokens from your own compute rather than somebody else's. But yeah, and a lot of the copilots do allow you to bring in your own local models with like an Ollama or an Azure Foundry local or otherwise. OpenAI kind of won by being first to the market, and so a lot of tools say, if you have an OpenAI compatible endpoint, right, we will work with that. And so without actually setting a standard, they set a standard by being first, and everybody just trying to play nice with that. It's the only area where it seems like everybody wants to play nice. But yeah. What is that you speak of? Yes. Yeah, sorry, I have my hands on a couple cool toys that are coming that I'm not allowed to share yet. So there's cool stuff coming, I'll put it that way. And I'm very excited. At some point when appropriate NDAs are lifted, there will be much excitement in my voice of going through and sharing them. See, I picked up 128 gig Styx Halo Ring late last year before prices went up. A great time to have done that. 70 tokens a second works pretty decently for that kind of stuff. Yeah, shoot. And you probably bought that at the perfect time, Ian. Like that's, yes. I unfortunately had the machine that I'm on now, I had to purchase it, I think it's been about 2 months now, because I had my motherboard and RAM. Something was up with it, and a couple months ago was a really, really bad time for me to have to buy RAM. It's like, dang nabbit. But I also couldn't tolerate being without my machine either, so that was unacceptable. Set property ref field. Sorry, I'm just noticing this here. Did we rev this thing up to the latest? I mean, it compiled. Where did I? Hang on. Did I actually update my Lang version? Sorry, the ref field is a new C# feature, and I'm just... Look at that. I revved my Lang version to 14. I mean, did you really need that spare kidneys? You're not wrong. To be fair, I had been on a desktop that I think I had purchased for about $600, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. And at the time, it was a very decent machine. By modern standards, it was starting to show its age. Previous gen AMD processor, DDR4, like it wasn't bad, but it was definitely not latest gen stuff. And so much happier with the new machine. I ended up, normally I would overspec my machines a little bit. Just due to cost, I ended up not doing that this time around. I mean, I even went as far as reusing my old power supply and otherwise, because I'm like, I don't need a new power supply. Yes, I would like a bigger one, but I have an 800 watt in there, and I'm like, it'll work. I'm spending enough on the RAM and motherboard already. I don't need more stuff. So it was one of those like, yeah, I'd like to not do that, but okay, so that seems fine. So all of those, nothing in there seems shocking. And so now the question is, what is going on here? And maybe we'll review this in Visual Studio, because I think this is probably easier to do there, I think. Let's go there. So I really wish it would stop opening my navigation tool. It keeps opening it on my secondary monitor. Let's see. I believe my server farm has about 256 gigs in total with a 100 terabyte of storage array. I mean, that's that with today's prices, Izzy, that RAM is quite valuable. Very valuable. Okay, so let's take a brief gander. What is going on inside of here? So we've got some styles for some text to bring those in. That's fine. Some based on stuff to offset, some text wrapping, some margins, some otherwise. Great, great, great. Where is my SAML previewer? Application window is minimized. Well, of course it's minimized. Okay, I'm going to move you not here. Okay, there. You go there. Be big for a second so I can keep an eye on you. So if I want to go through and this guy, all right? So this is the tertiary brush here. Okay. So then if I scroll the window down, what is this one bound to? Background brush. That does well, but this is a color template. So this is a data template. That's fine. So where is, I want to find the generated colors. Oh, I think I just figured out why the scroll bar doesn't work. I think I just found the explanation of that. Okay, so where is elevate car? No, this is the wrong thing. Okay. So let's go down here. Primary source mode. Card. Just want the generated colors. That's all I want. Show me that. Okay. So this is bound to tertiary rather than, because this too far. Okay. Tertiary brush. So tertiary and tertiary brush are clearly not bound to the same thing. Let's go take a quick gander. Let's see. Only DDR3 as it's quite old. Yeah, that's true. And some of the older RAM isn't like, it's no DDR5. I was actually at a fabrication plant several weeks back for Micron. They're a big chip manufacturer here in the US and all over the world. And they had a stick of DDR5 desktop memory sitting in a display case as part of kind of the tour showing off the fabrication unit. I was sitting there going, man, that stick is worth a lot right now. It's cheap for people who have, who have plenty of it. Let's do the collection expression change. Oh, I was going to have it do it across the whole file. No, do it in the whole document. Oh, is that literally the only one left? Okay, great, fine. Okay, so what I want to find is tertiary is here. And this is only ever set in one place. Update generated color tiles. So the question is let's see, hot reload. Okay, fine. Hot reload, no dice. I'm curious why that doesn't fire then, because it looks like it should. Oh, and I wanted to go fix the what file was that in? What file was that in? The main window.xaml 69. Let's see here. There's those demos. Main window G169. So let's do false. We don't want you to default to true. Thank you. So you recently managed to buy 64 gigs for my new laptop, then a week later sold the original 32 gig sticks for more. So essentially got a free upgrade. You got going. Those pets are really distracting. Yeah, I'll turn them off, JC. Sorry. I was playing with them. We can, let's see. Go away, pets. For people who aren't used to seeing them, they are Mads Christensen, who is I think the most popular Visual Studio Extension author. He also works on the Visual Studio team. Ported over the extension, the similar pets extension from VS Code. He actually said in a YouTube interview not that long ago that one of the things that he enjoys doing is, I haven't spotted here yet, I blame the pets. Touche. He said one of the things that he enjoys doing is looking at the download numbers on other like VS Code or JetBrains products to see what the download numbers are for other extensions, and then building those equivalents for Visual Studio, because people can tell you what extensions they want, but they speak loudest by what they actually download. I was like, that's not a bad. That's firing. So hang on. Why is tertiary not updating? So this guy is in theory changing. Background brush D8 F2. Okay. If I do this, tertiary, so the color is changing. Why is it not raising property changed is, I guess, the question. That should be raising property changed. So then why? Oh, tertiary brush. Oh. Why do we have tertiary and tertiary brush? Where is tertiary brush? Do we have the MVVM toolkit in this? I don't know that we do, but if we do, it may affect the way I'm going to solve this. Do not. Okay, so because this is almost assuredly the problem, right? Is this tertiary brush is being created from tertiary color. It's trying to raise property changed here, but at the end of the day, it's going to raise property changed, but without actually. Well, let me check here. Right, so when we do this, and I click here, that fires, but it never actually goes through and changes. Okay. Tertiary color. I'm guessing you don't change either. Yeah, so tertiary color doesn't ever get set, which is never going down that code path. Let's see. The only flaw in that plan is that a lot of people may download, try it out, then not use it. You ever install it once if you do use it. Yeah, that's fair. It's in shared, isn't it? JC, sorry, I may have missed where your comment was coming from. MVVM. Oh, that's a good point. In the shared project. Haha. You are correct. You are correct. So we should be, so a lot of these property changes we can probably replace with this update computed state is the only thing I don't know that we can't get away with, but we should be able to leverage the new source gen properties. But tertiary color never gets assigned to, and that's almost assuredly the mistake. So where does the because the primary is being changed, right? So primary brush is being set. So where does, what's the code path to here, right? Because you clearly come in on property changed, primary color gets set there. Where'd my call stack window go? Call stack. Oh, because this is bound directly to the color picker. The other ones, when they're in a state of auto, don't automatically pick it up. That's an interesting one. Okay, so that makes some sense of. So it makes sense why we're getting into this state. I just don't like it. What are you bound to? Oh, stop it. Grid generic. I want to grab. Sure, let's go here. Source mode. Secondary source mode. Let's take a look at here. Are you used anywhere? That is an interesting problem. So it's not actually being referenced anywhere in a way that would change anything. So it's dialed back to the properties, but it doesn't actually change. There's nothing in the code path for when the primary one changes to toggle it. I am curious why there's a separation there. It seems like if it's autoed, you'd want it to match what is coming in from down below. Because when it's custom, right, and you do this, this should change. Oh, interesting. It doesn't change the secondary down below. Oh, it does. Interesting. So it does. Maybe my assertion that it should be bound here is wrong, because this really should be this color. It's more complicated. It's more complicated. That is very, very interesting. Maybe I should just let this merge because it's just the demo app. with just my minor changes here, maybe it's not worth trying to make those things adapt, because the bottom ones are they're the output of the theme color, not the theme color itself. Got it. Okay. That is interesting. Okay, let's figure out why this thing is. So if we do that on there, still doesn't. We don't need that. That's kind of meaningless. Icon button. Where does this guy... Does this not have a... is this just going in 3? Yeah, it's currently only in the 3 demo app, only because the spec that he has implemented is the Material Design 3 spec. There isn't quite the same thing for 2. And it's not generating anything. It's literally just giving you the brushes that you could use. And right now, the theme colors that are in there are not named according to the Material Design 3. But having this makes me want to go through and create a equivalent for it. So, for example, the app.xaml, we have these nice, easy bundled themes to be able to go through and do. It does make me want to build out a Material Design 3 like custom color theme, right? Because like these custom colors, you can plug in any arbitrary primary, secondary, all that jazz, and have it all build out. It kind of makes me want to leverage this to generate you the one line of XAML that you would need to drop into your app to say, yes, here's the color theme that I want. Right? It definitely makes me intrigued to do something like this, but this is it right now. This is literally just in the demo app. It's not going anywhere else. It's not breaking anything. I do not understand. So there's 2 things that are still bothering me with this, and I think I'm going to abandon the color changing thing because I'm now realizing that it's slightly more complicated. This copy button, not like that hover effect, is something is happening, and I don't understand what. Grabbing Snoop real quick. I do not understand what is happening with these buttons. We're gonna go here and grab that. Okay, so there's the geometry. So let's do this. Is mouse. Bring you over here. Right? I kind of like is mouse over. Like is mouse over is false right here. But is mouse over is true here. What the heck? Why is that? What is going on? Let's see. I'm going to collapse this up so I'm not covering up the chat. It's the white lines. Yeah, it definitely. I agree with it. Like it is absolutely those white line. I can. It's a little weird because I feel like my cursor is just off the. Like on, off. Like it's weird that that's a hit too, but it does absolutely feel like it's the pack icon that's doing it to me. Like there is something. This guy here. Zoom back in. It is Yeah, because like there, it's triggering the ripple, but I'm way outside the pack icon. So I'm very confused as to what's going on, of why this is not hitting properly. And I'm trying to decide if it's this code here. Let's see, is actually, show me your. So it's got a transparent background set, which generally would make it hit testable. So I'm surprised that like here is mouse over is false. Like that. What is the mouse over? Okay. We're going to close this and we're going to, if I click there, mouse down on text block. Oh, I see what it is. The text block is sitting on top of it. That's what's going on. The text block is, oh, that's what's going on. The text block is on top of the stupid sucker. Okay. Because what's going on? Because these are in a grid. And this is actually... Got it. So the simplest solution is we just fix the Z order by doing this. And then the problem goes away. Oh man, I only caught that by, so for people who didn't see what that was, the cheater trick in Snoop here. Boom, 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 get rid of the breakpoint. Right, is right here. There, that's much nicer. That's much nicer. Is inside of Snoop, you can get the events that fire. And so even if something's not hit testable, when you click, you can see the mouse down event, because WPF has tunneling and bubbling events. The tunneling events are your preview ones, like preview mouse down. So it starts from the top, works down the visual tree until it finds the element it hits, and then that bubbles back up to the top, which is what this mouse down is. So it gives you a nice, easy way to see how your event traversed the tree, and in this case, being able to see that the text block hit. The other thing that we could have done is, rather than changing this here, we could have just made these things non-hit testable, meaning the click would go through it rather than hitting it, which would be fine, right? Like, I'm guessing this is only firing somewhere along here. There is a background color or similar being applied to this, but yeah, that's, I'm less concerned about doing that, and I figure just fixing the Z order is the simplest fix of going through and doing it. The last thing I want to grab is, I want to figure out, so like when I'm here, I'm doing my mouse wheel and I'm not moving, right? There's a spot where I can get, if I get all the way onto my scroll bar, it goes, but I can't scroll my content here. Right, so that part bothers me. And so we're going to grab this, and I believe I can grab scroll events. Let's see, where is it? Let's see, preview mouse wheel. Let's just do mouse wheel, I think. I don't need the tunneling event. So if I do here and wheel, so let's see here. So this scroll viewer handled it. So there's a scroll viewer here, which is not this scroll viewer. So let's see. So there's a scroll viewer nested all the way down inside here. But then there's also, so we've got nested scroll viewers is the problem. So there's the main scroll viewer, and then there's a scroll viewer down here inside of this dock panel, which is inside of the dynamic color tool. So this guy here has a scroll viewer in him that needs to die. Yeah, so this guy needs to just go away. And that will probably solve the scrolling problem. Because a scroll viewer and a scroll viewer is a recipe for disaster. We'll do that. And now my mouse wheel works the way I expect. That's what we want. Now I can just move my mouse and I can scroll up and down and everyone's happy. Okay. So maybe that's okay. Maybe that's okay. Let's see. That was a minor cleanup. This was fixing the Z order. The unfortunate part is this one here. So we'll turn off leading and trailing white space to make this diff a lot better. Because unfortunately the indent of nearly all of these lines, because most lines are now going to have this 2-space indent after the deletion of the scroll viewer. So we turn off white space so we don't have to look at those. So it's a little more obvious what the change was. That'll work. And then here we just turn that back off, and then we auto code a commit message. And I think we can let this merge. It is definitely, it's not a lot of value because we don't have the demo app as a distributable artifact yet. However, this absolutely moves the ball forward. I want to check my upstream to make sure I'm set to the right one. I'm not, so we're going to push back to the other remote. And then I think we can go through and submit a review, approve. Let's see, minor tweaks to it. Okay, so we'll submit that review. Let that go, and then I just got to jump out here real quick to turn on enable auto merge, and then we'll approve the workflow to run. Okay. Have we fixed our stupid demo app one? Oh, finally went green. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Okay, so we're going to squash merge this guy in. Yeah, so that'll get that in, and hopefully that fixes the flaky test problem. That goes there. This one, I just need to rebase. So close this down. Let's see. So this is over on my work tree. I think we're going to just throw away that other commit because we moved it onto main master. We'll rebase this guy up to here, push, and then he should go. Yeah, JC, it is really nice. And that's the thing is, there's been a lot of requests around like theme builders and other things for this app. And I've been a little hesitant. We got ourselves set up a lot nicer for doing some cool theme brushes. And I've been contemplating what it's going to take to switch the naming of the brushes to match the Material Design 3 naming scheme. Because it would be nice to be if people could leverage these docs to know, oh, okay, I see the, you've got primary fixed, primary container, right? Our brushes don't match that. You forgot to click the don't show in, don't show in force push. Oh, when I actually click this little tick box to not have it prompt every time. You're right, I did miss this. But it would be nice if the brushes inside the library could leverage the Material Design terminology, because it is still very much based around the Material Design 2 naming. The one thing that we have done, and I'm very happy I did this, is inside of our tooling. I've got this resource gen. Where is it? No, that's the palette. Where is the brushes? Theme colors. This guy is. I do have the ability to do alternate keys, so it would very much be possible to effectively alias some brushes to leverage this new naming, and then you could easily have something of that nature generate a theme for a color theme for your app, right? And with these extra color utilities being added in, like there's also some really cool stuff that could be added for the automatic color generation or the light dark toggles. Like there's extra functionality there that I previously built into the colors one that I think I could obsolete in favor. Izzy, enjoy the birthday breakfast. See you in a few weeks. Don't have too much fun without me. Okay, so that one went through there. Let's see, we'll go back here. I think that gets all of these ones. I am going to abandon this PR. Close pull request. I'm not going to delete my branch because I may want to leech some of the AI skills off of it, but there's no point in the PR sitting there. That one goes, that one goes, that one goes, and I think the rest of these we're still holding on. Sweet. I think that's going to sit there. Wow, long birthday celebration. Amen. Okay, cool. I think that gets everything squared away for what I was looking for. Yeah, I do want to start moving towards getting the engineering around this a little tighter, especially so that I can leverage some of my Copilot tokens to start kind of cutting down on the lag time between people's questions and responses and issues. Because I think with a little bit of setup in here, I can prompt my way into a lot of easy use cases, right? And get some of those done. Because there's also quite a few issues on the backlog that I think I could just start assigning to the coding agent and have it knock out. Obviously, it didn't do great here, but I missed that it screwed up until I looked a little closer. So it's one of those. It is absolutely going to make mistakes, but if it can even solve a small percentage of it, it's kind of worth it to me, because that's a handful of things I didn't have to touch. So, and I think it'll probably get through there. This needs to go into the milestone. I'm going to put it there, and I'm going to label it demo app just so that it goes into the right place. Which can just be closed. Yes, it absolutely can. Well, and I should say absolutely. It depends on how well written they are. And there's been a handful of really... Let me go look real quick, because I think... There was this guy here. So this was turned loose around... So we've gotten bug reports around memory leaks. And they've been... Oh, that's stupid. Where is this hover one coming from? There it is. Kraken. Bad Kraken. We've had a number of memory leaks get reported. And so Nikolai turned it loose to give it try to have it do some analysis, because it's been difficult for us to reproduce. Right? And so whatever happened was non-obvious. And just trying to have it track down and give some feedback, because this is one of the areas where it's actually fairly good, right? It can make mistakes and not understand things, but it also can pick up on subtleties that are easily overlooked, right? Because the human eye and the way AI sees the code are not the same. And so our brains are more hardwired on the pattern recognition and like being able to pull in disparate amounts of information of, oh no, that's fine because of X, Y, and Z. Whereas it can see things that it's like, oh, you've made this small typo where I'll spend 10 minutes staring at it, not realizing I've mucked up and used a 0 instead of an O or something. Whereas it looks at that and go, how did you not see that, you moron? It's right there in front of you. And so it's come back with some interesting potential culprits of being able to do it. And I think this is actually not a bad use of leveraging it, because this actually is, I think, a very good use case for doing it. A few caveats on can it close out some of the old ones. Some of the old ones that are not easily marked as done or not done, or still bugs or not still bugs, are not always easy for it to do because it doesn't have an easy way of checking in a lot of cases, right? Web-based applications, there's nice web tooling like Playwright or similar. Whereas if the bug report is, oh, this color didn't change properly, it kind of, at least at present, has to look at the XAML in the code and infer what it's going to do at runtime rather than running it and confirm. So it's it can do stuff, and it's usually good at inferring what the behavior is going to be at runtime. But there is a big difference between inferring what it's going to do at runtime and actually running it and seeing it. So because that's the other thing is, especially since some of the material design stuff, especially around like colors, when you let it load from the system theme, if it doesn't launch, it may not always understand, no, that there's something external to this content that's influencing it. I understand that, but it doesn't always take that into account. So there's a handful of those situations. Is it worth just closing anything not raised this decade? Probably. At one point in time, we actually were getting this list down really quick. And unfortunately, we're a victim of our own success. We've gotten quite a few people in here. A lot of these up for grab ones, I have been tempted to just let Copilot go to town on, because most of the up for grab ones are ones that I've gone through and intentionally left in as ways for people to go through and handle, because they are probably easy enough to do. Some of them are obsolete and probably dead, but part of me is like, oh, let the agent close it. That'd be great. But then at the other hand, I also think that they also make for a good opportunity to try to bring more people into the library. And so there's a question of how valuable is it? Is the value in helping get somebody started and contributing to the library? Or is it in closing the issue? Because if it's not getting a lot of traction, it's probably not impacting a lot of people. So those types of things are potentially an easier thing to handle. Right? So there is a little bit of this, but like something of this, font change, color overrides for snack bar, I think this is probably a worthwhile thing to do. And there's plenty of usages of the agent to go through and trim the backlog and otherwise. I would love to go through and I've got some aspirations of setting it up so that when new bugs come in, it just instantly tries to reproduce them. Because if it can reproduce the bug, that is honestly a huge chunk of my time that goes into doing it, especially when somebody like this has clearly written up what looks to be a decent bug report, right? Sample XAML, screenshots, showing the issue. They log the version explicitly. It's like, that looks like a well-written bug report to me. Right? Haven't validated that I can reproduce it, which is step one in fixing every bug, is make sure I can reproduce the problem first. But it definitely looks like this is a potential problem. The only thing that's giving me a slight pause is on a lot of the text-based stuff. We have alignment, but this is inside a data grid. Those bets are probably off. Right? There's a handful of these things. And it's, yeah, these extra border lines I suspect are probably, like I agree that the vertical alignment is probably not what is expected, but this is probably something that is potentially fixable. You know what? Do I have? I'm tempted to turn it loose, but I'm also tempted to go through and try to address it. So let me just show the other thing that's on my mind at the moment while it's thinking. So we've got, and I'll open this up. So I've got this branch out on XAML test that I've worked on for a little bit, and at some point I probably am just going to push this and start taking in preview bits. So one of the things, and let me grab it. So where is it? David Fowler, who is one of the engineers on Aspire, right, wrote this up around trying to make your agents manage processes. Because one of the things that Aspire did on 13.2 is their MCP is much nicer about being able to start the Aspire host, make sure all of that stuff is managed, because managing the processes, that's not something you really want the agent doing. That's something a little more deterministic inside of your code. And so their MCP handles it for you, which is great. Makes it easy for the agent to be able to interact with it, do the needful, all of that stuff. Right? Similar to what like the Playwright MCP does. It starts the browser, gives the agents the tools to interact with it, but ultimately the Playwright tooling does the heavy lifting, which is great. Have a good one, JC. And so I kind of want my XAML test library to mimic that, but for WPF. It's one of those, not a lot of people are working on this area, and so I somewhat suspect that this is one of those, I'm building this for me and probably only for me, right? So I do have this little MCP server and slowly plugging in some tools for it. I'm only hedging because it's like I don't fully know exactly what I need this to do, right? Like when Aspire fires up, there's an extra layer that I don't have called DCP. So DCP, and I'm trying to remember what it stands for. It deals with making sure like your containers start and all that related stuff fires up, which is cool, right? It makes it very nice. The issue I have is I don't have kind of that orchestration layer inside of this flow that I have here. And I'm trying to decide if I need it or not. Because I've got very simple tools here, right? This starts a WPF application and lets the agent effectively fire up the WPF shell, do the needful, do the injection, we're off to the races. Right? That is perfect. I feel like this is not quite the flow that I need it to do yet, and so I'm holding and hedging on that a little bit. But for people who want to know how hard it is to build an MCP server and tool, it's stupid simple. It's a CLI app. That's it. So it's something that I'm playing with and throwing around, because I suspect getting this right will significantly improve agents' ability to interact with the repository. Oh, hold up. That won't run. Sorry, I just got a notification. One of the pull requests failed. Why doesn't this show? I don't know why I got an email saying that this run failed when it clearly hasn't finished yet. Was there a remote? go back here. Did something else merge preemptively before I got to it? Let's see here. Cancel. Go back to this one. So I wonder if this just needs to be rebased. That is not, wait. Hold on, go back here. Something is very much off about this. Reset. Why is it not? Oh, because the demo 3 release, I based it on the wrong base commit. So when this merged, it actually already brought in the demo 3 dynamic color stuff. Oh, I screwed up. Okay, that's why when I rebase this, I only see the one commit. Okay, so let's set up stream again and shove that up. And that will... That's why it's confused on whether it failed or not. Okay. Oh, throwing my mic. Probably a sign I'm getting tired. Okay, so that's going... And hopefully the flaky test with the tab control is now resolved. And then approve workflows to run. That'll kick that off. I'll go make sure the other run is dead. Let's see. This is the toolbar one. It already canceled the other run. Oh, it finished, actually. So if it wasn't for the conflict, it would have merged. Okay. Well, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so that's going to go there, that's going to go there, and everything merges, and that is all in place. Okay. Perfect. We are cruising. Okay, I think given that it is nearly midnight for me, I should probably call it for the evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming in and hanging out. Chris, if you're still lurking, thank you for bringing your wonderful viewers over. It's been a pleasure again for everybody who found this interesting. I'm usually on here Thursday nights, but no stream for the next 2 weeks. But if you follow YouTube channel, you will see some interviews posted both the next 2 Thursdays. So those are forthcoming. So as always, happy coding. See everyone next time.